then we're good. Okay. Yeah, it's just a reporting meeting.
And we are live. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cornelius. 1 second. Welcome, everyone. Today is Friday, February 24th, and this is the Intergovernmental Legislative Relations Committee. And actually, Mr. Minicucci, I'm looking at the wrong one. So wouldn't you know?
Okay, so I think the first item, Madam, the agenda is fairly simple. It's the first item is report from the state legislative lobby team. Mr. Thompson, Mr. Armillo, and then Mr. Padilla, Mr. Griego, if they have reports. And then after that, just report from Mr. O'Donnell and other business if there is any. And there you go.
Okay. See, I was looking at the right one for the record, but notice how it has, the date hasn't changed on it, just so that you all know. So this is February 24th, and that is still the same agenda that we had last week, just so for the record and for everyone watching. So if we want to go ahead and go to our state lobbying team, we'd be happy to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Hi, everybody. It's Friday, and the forms for capital outlay, the final forms are due tomorrow at noon. So they keep on moving the time by a day. I don't know if it will change yet again. The good news is that the governor's office is really working closely with the legislature. So I feel like those Albuquerque projects where there's coordination between the legislature and the governor's office, I feel like they stand a much, much better chance. Whereas in years past, the governor might pick one Albuquerque project or two projects. It seems likely that there may be multiple projects selected, which I think is really encouraging. You know, legislators are completely overwhelmed by this process. Some of them have hundreds of requests and people calling them, you know, so everybody's kind of at their wits' end. But I will say that I feel like the city of Albuquerque, the council, you know, the administration, I feel like everybody did a really good job of getting their projects before legislators. And I think we did a much better job than some of our contemporaries. So I feel like we are in a good spot to be able to do well.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Oh, pardon me. Hang on. It's the timer to go get my kid. Thank you so much for that. So I just want to, so I'm happy to hear that, and I'm happy to hear that there's good progress going. So I know that, you know, as far as the citywide priorities and making sure that we communicate, I just want to, so you think that we're probably standing pretty well?
Yes, Madam Chair, I believe so.
I mean,
and you know, we're getting like these calls, last minute calls like, hey, tell me about this or tell me about that. So we're trying to be responsive to all those queries. This morning, we had one for one of the counselors that was fairly significant. Good conversation with one of the legislators that Mr. Minicucci and helped arrange. And so I feel like we're, you know, making progress and we're in a position to do our best.
okay. And when do you, I know they keep moving the timeline, and I know that that can keep happening, but do you think that it's likely that tomorrow might be the day that by Monday we might know a little bit more about the details of where we stand?
It usually takes about a week after the forms are due. So if tomorrow noon is it, then I would say next weekend we would start to see a manifestation of the bill. We may see a pre-sheet or something. I think because the governor is doing so much matching with legislators, I'll bet you we have something even before that on projects where there's really true collaboration happening.
Okay.
Or Mr. Padilla or somebody will get, you know, some feedback that he'll be able to pass on.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, I guess that was easy. Any other questions, comments? Do we have Mr. Jaramillo here today?
No, Councilor Bassan, no, he's, I believe, testifying on House Bill 218 with Councilor Feeblecorn. Though one message from Councilor Feeblecorn, she was wanting to know if the committee, and I think particularly, I think to Mr. Griego and Mr. Padilla, she's wanting to know what the city can do to start really tracking and trying to, I hope I have the right wording, stop some of the preemptive bills. She says there have been a couple preemptive bills that have been introduced that are that kind of taken where the state, I guess, limits the powers of somebody to the city to, I guess, regulate some particular item. She mentioned something regarding, I think, clean energy items. Do you? And I think she just wants to see if there's a possibility for the lobbying team to kind of start tracking and kind of step in on the city's position as being opposed. But
Yeah, I will say this, even though I'm not the policy guy, historically, we have always fought anything that sort of limited Albuquerque's ability to self-determine. And so I'm sure Mr. Jaramillo has been working on or examined those. I'm sure you could talk with the counselor.
And Madam Chair, I just to add, we are tracking it. We have some both in the on the administration side and also in city legal been trying to keep an eye on. So if anybody hears of a preemption bill and we can get some analysis in, then we definitely let our lobbying team know to focus on it and to try to work with the sponsors, and if not with the sponsors, then to definitely testify in opposition. So if there's a bill number on that clean energy bill, I don't think it's on our radar screen right now, but we are trying to monitor. There's a lot of bills, obviously, but we're working with legal to try to keep an eye on as many as possible. So please let us know if there's something that's problematic. We're already playing defense on a couple of bills, and Madam Chair, we should probably talk about an update. Mr. Padilla may have an update, because one of the problematic bills, as you know, and it was mentioned at council the other night, is that tax pyramiding bill that we've been putting a lot of energy into make sure it does not end up hurting the fiscal situation for the city. And I think the team is doing good work on that one.
Yes, I'm glad you brought it up, because I was going to ask about it. And if we have an update on anything, I mean, on one end, I hear we're really doing a lot of defense and we're really trying hard because it could hurt the city so much. And then on the other end, I hear from some other people where it's going to be a surprise if it doesn't pass. And so that scares me, right? And of course, from where I sit, it's always a matter of both are very true until the decision has been made. So I'm just kind of wondering where we're at. And so Mr. Padilla, if you want to talk about that, I think that would be very beneficial.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we've been working a lot with the Muni League, and we've been in communication with the governor's office and a bunch of legislators. It is possible the pyramid will pass. I know that's a big thing that the administration wants and some other legislators want, but what they're looking at right now are fixes that would hold. We don't want to say hold harmless, because what that does is it brings up something else that happened in the past that didn't work out for municipalities, and that was just giving cash payments to the city. But fixes that will work. One is a decoupling, so it kind of moves. That's the 1225. It's a certain amount of money, tax revenue that the state taxes and gives to municipalities. Move that away from the state and then increase it a little bit so that we're held harmless, not held harmless, so that it doesn't impact the city. There's a couple other bills that were introduced that would take care of that problem for the city of Albuquerque. Actually, it might increase the amount of revenue that the city receives. Those bills would just restructure the state's GRT tax. So there's a bunch of stuff that's going on right now with that particular piece of legislation. And we're expecting an omnibus tax bill to come out that has a bunch of different provisions in it, because you're seeing other things like eliminating GRT tax on diapers, eliminating GRT tax on a few other things. So when all of the bill comes together in an omnibus bill, we'll have a better idea what's going on. Legislators have pretty much heard from municipalities, and municipalities showed up and said that they don't have an appetite. They can't afford a reduction in GRT for municipalities and for counties. And the members of the House Tax Committee, they're concurring. They're actually agreeing with that. So I think that there will be a fix, but it's something we have to be diligent. We have to work hard with. The Muni League's on it. We're on it. And we'll keep looking at different types of solutions to see if we can actually get a package that works for everybody.
Wouldn't that be amazing to get a package that works for everybody? Okay. Well, I look forward to being kept in the loop on that because it is scary and that was encouraging. So thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair, did you want to do an update on any of the other bills on the crime
Sure.
side or MRA or any of that, or we good?
Sure. No, I guess I was thinking if Mr. Hardemute, but no, I would love if you all want to give an update where that's what we're here for. So that would be fabulous.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. The tax bill, obviously, we've been team's been really focusing on that, and I think Mr. Thompson already gave us a good update on capital. That seems to be going well. Just a couple of quick updates on some of the priority bills that the committee had prioritized. One is that MRA bill, which would allow our MRAs across the city to have more resources for redevelopment. That passed unanimously in the tax committee. It's headed to Senate Finance now, and our team's keeping a close eye on that, but we're hoping that continues to get traction. We also had that automated speed enforcement bill we've been following, which is also still in play. Quickly on the crime side, the warrant bill we talked about last time. The funding $7 million of the 20 million that we were asking for warrant felony warrant enforcement is in HB2, but we're also working on some language that would make sure it's clear how that money would be allocated between the city and the county and the other parts of the judiciary, the judicial system, including DAs and the courts and so on. That one's moving as well, and I know David and Damon Martinez are working on that one, and we'll hopefully have some updates and better news next week when we check in. Some of the other MCI bills haven't fared as well. Asset forfeiture, the retail crime bills had some bumps. We're still trying to see if we can revive that. And then finally, HB 227, which is a really important retention bill for APD, passed, and it's still moving. And we think that we can keep that one in play and hopefully get it over to the Senate. Let me just make sure I didn't forget anything else here. Yeah, the last thing is, because I know you all passed Wednesday night the city county collaboration bill on housing. There's also a state housing department bill that the governor is very big on that would also kind of bolster efforts on housing, and we're trying to be supportive of that to also show that we agree that there needs to be some more state support for housing. It would also impact this new housing entity that the city and the county are working on. So lots of other stuff going on, but that's probably plenty for now, unless anybody has questions.
Any questions or comments from everyone? I'm sad to hear about the retail crime bill, but the rest I'm glad is still out there, lingering in some way or another.
Yeah, we haven't given up on it, Madam Chair. We're still trying to figure out if there's any chance of reviving it, but there's some efforts that if David could probably give us an update when he's back, or Damon. One that I did forget, Madam Chair, because I know you passed on Wednesday night the city version of the catalytic converters bill, and I know SB 133 came up. So we're definitely putting a lot of effort into making sure that advances. It's a separate setup, as you discussed Wednesday night, than what the city's doing, and it would not impact what was passed the other night. However, it would help. It would be it provides some additional tools around record keeping and authority for municipalities around catalytic converter sort of tracking and so on. So that one we're also putting a lot of effort into as well. So hopefully that'll advance to the Senate, to the House after it makes it to the Senate.
Awesome. Thank you.
Madam Chair, real quick on the retail theft bill. I know that today, I think that the speaker has been reaching out to the different partners to see if they can actually find a resolution at the speaker's office. So that one, yeah, there possibly could be a fix that would come out on Monday, possibly later. Well, no, maybe later on tomorrow, and then possibly be up for something on Monday.
Okay, good. All right. Thank you very much for all those updates. And now we will move on to reports from the federal lobbyists, Mr. O'Donnell and Mr. Pagonis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We have a very brief report. As we reported earlier this week, and I think maybe last week, the two senators have their preliminary appropriations forms out for project requests, that is for money. Senator Lujan's is due on Tuesday, the 28th, and Senator Heinrich just announced his preliminary responses are due on March 10th. The three House members from New Mexico haven't got their project requests, which again are the money requests for projects, out because the House Appropriations Committee has not yet released the guidance. But Kyriakis and myself heard yesterday that the plan is for the House Appropriations Committee to release guidance at the same time the president's budget comes out, which is March 9th. So that's what we're looking for. All three House members and the two senators do have a form on their website for making programmatic requests. And as we've said before, that's like if you wanted to ask for the CDBG program at a national level to be funded at 4.5 billion. That's what you would use that programmatic request form for. Just make sure that nobody that you're working with, where you do have a project funding request, you don't want them to use that programmatic form. It'll be pretty clear pretty quickly that it's not the right form. But a few years ago, when the process started again for earmarking, we did have some people submit them on the programmatic form. And that is, I'll ask Kyriakis if we covered it. Is there anything else we ought to add, Kyriakis? We're okay?
I think we're good, John. Yep.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments? So I know that I wanted to ask you, Mr. O'Donnell, I had received from one of the representatives here, Senator Lujan's, his form saying to send everything in by the 28th. And I just want to clarify, and I try not to get too specific, but this is my opportunity. So, when it comes to the North Domingo Baca Aquatic Center, I feel like, we've kind of discovered different routes and whatnot for trying to figure out how to find funding when it comes to the federal level. And it seems to be, and I was talking to Mr. Menacucci, it seems to be that sometimes that's not necessarily the taste that is, we're finding a proper location to claim that on the federal level. But am I on the right track with that thinking, or should we talk about this offline and get something turned into Senator Lujan by Tuesday?
I think we should talk about this offline because I think the recreation funding is always a challenge. The city did have a request 2 years ago that did get funded, and it's my view that the reason that the Daniel Webster Park received funding was because it had a special dimension to it for disadvantaged children. There is an account under the Transportation and Housing and Urban Development Subcommittee called EDI, Economic Development Initiatives. It's a very competitive account, but it is one that this request might fit into, but I think we should probably talk about all the nuances to a request for that project.
So, Mr. Menacucci, do you want to speak with Mr. O'Donnell about it? Do you want me to? Shall we all do that? I just don't want to say, let's do it later, and then all of a sudden it's Tuesday.
And probably, Madam, Chair, we can all do it. If you're available after, I know it sounds like you pick up your
No,
kid.
my mom did it.
Okay,
Thanks.
so, and Mr. O'Donnell, if you're available after the meeting for a few minutes.
Sure.
Okay.
Kyriakis.
Pull it together.
Sure.
Okay. So then maybe I'll send over a quick Zoom or something when we finish.
Okay.
it. Okay. All right,
Thank you,
great.
Madam
Well,
Chairman.
thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Madam Chair, you had asked last time that we just focus on the list, the federal priorities list, and we
Yeah.
did. We also have been in communication with staff of the delegation, and for the 28th for Lujan, we spoke to their staff, and their primary focus, I think, as Mr. O'Donnell's mentioned before, is for the preliminary list, which is the first deadline, the 28th, is really around public safety. So we're trying to identify we've sent a list out, like a request out to the departments for projects related to public safety. And obviously that would include first responders and ACS and related entities. So we will probably, maybe at next week's meeting, we'll sort of propose a few of those ideas just so we're on the same page with council. And we also we've received a few other recommendations from departments that we're going to try to prioritize. So just my understanding, and Mr. O'Donnell can correct me, my understanding from both the Senator Heinrichs is we have a little more time. I think he said the 10th, I think was what his staff said. But what I heard from Senator Lujan's office is this February 28th deadline is really around some preliminary projects, and the greatest focus, the primary focus is around public safety related projects. So we're going to try to see if we can identify a couple of those by next week, and then we do have a little more time for Senator Heinrich. And as Mr. O'Donnell said, we have not received any information from the House members yet. So they might be able to accommodate some of the other recommendations we get from departments when we sort of put our priority list together.
Okay, and that reminds me, thank you, Mr. Griego Montoya. That reminds me too, where are we at with making sure, I know that we left it with the administration's going to work with Mr. Menacucci to get federal priorities to Mr. O'Donnell and Mr. Pagonis. Where are we at with that process?
Madam Chair, basically we met with Mr. Griego, and we both went kind of from there, contacted our various groups. From the council, Mr. Griego just explained the administration end. From the council end, we sent out an email to all the councilors last week. We working with Mr. O'Donnell, and they explained, like Mr. Griego said, it's public safety, public health, and there's a third one that escapes me right at the moment that was in there. We only received back so from the councilors, several councilors, but they all seem to be wanting to focus on the youth shelter, and also the two comments, and also storm drainage in the Southeast Heights, along with Pueblo Alto, and which we'll kind of send in because they might fit into public safety on those, both of them. But I think they definitely fit into Mr. Senator Heinrich. So right now, that's what we received from the councilors. I sent out a notification to a number of councilors again today, just asking them to remind them that we'd like to see something in by Monday. That's where we're at.
And how many councilors are still remaining to be heard from?
So at this point in time, who we heard back from was 1, 2, 3, I think, councilors. And so most of them are still coming back, but I think a number of them have kind of said they don't know if they have anything that fits the federal priorities. So I think that's kind of it. I mean, we've heard back from 3. I've reached out to 3 or 4 more this morning. I got a couple more I have still reach out to.
Okay.
For the second, this is just a follow-up message. They did get the email.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, and then on the administration side, we also sent it out to directors, and we did get some projects back. My understanding is that for the first deadline, if we could agree on just a few public safety related projects for the Senator Lujan's preliminary list, and that maybe by next Friday's meeting, we can at least have some preliminary projects identified from counselors and from the directors that we've reached out to, and see maybe we can start trying to see if we can come up with a list, or at the very least not have too long a list of priorities so that the delegation can try to help us prioritize those, and also vet the ones that just aren't going to be of interest to them, because some of these they're just not going to be able to fund. So our goal, and Lawrence Real and talk to the team about trying to get, again, a very preliminary list together for next Friday, at least to do an update. That's our goal.
Which is great. So my question then is, I thought that, so if we have to have something preliminary into Senator Lujan, how is that going to work when Friday is already after the 28th?
So, Madam Chair, so I talked to Lujan staff today, and what they understand that we're trying to get our bigger list together. They're calling the 28th a preliminary deadline, and that we should really focus on if we can identify some public safety related projects. So that's what we're focusing on. So we'd love to work with the committee on that. For the bigger list, which might include a number of other projects, maybe some of the issues like the youth shelter and other things that we try to advance, we have a little bit more time. Their hard deadline is not till the 16th of March. So we do have some time for the bigger list, but I would, to your point, Madam Chair, I would suggest that we try to come up with a handful of public safety, AFR, APD, ACS type projects, and anything we could sort of make the argument that's public safety related. So we can work with Mr. Minicucci and with council staff to see if we can at least have a few that we can get into the first deadline, so we don't miss the first deadline in Senator Lujan's office.
I guess, and that's good, but, and correct me if I'm wrong from the rest of the committee, I thought you all were supposed to be working on that in the last couple weeks so that we could have that ready. And now we're saying, okay, let's start working on it, but it sounds like the administration is just doing their own thing anyway. So are we going to come together and do like a council administration priorities again and hope that we don't have the same situation happen again? Or is it going to be the administration is going to find their public safety priorities and you guys are going to talk to Senator Lujan's office and do what you do, and that we need to do what we need to do? Because it kind of sounds like we're beginning on the same path again, and I hope we're not, but I would like to at least know so that if we need to have council work on our end of it and communicate federally, then we can just do that directly so that we don't kind of get left out on the edge of the wing when really we also have input that we would like to make sure gets put in there.
So Madam Chair, I can speak from council perspective. No, it looks like it was a little disaggregated, but actually no. What it was is that we met and we both had to go to our separate, Eric would handle the administration, I would handle the council. So we did do it, and the council, as usual, it takes a while for them to get back, and they can get back. So we're checking on that today. So basically, once I get my list, we get the list in, what we have by Monday, then that's the list we'll have. And I think, and then myself and Eric can get together. I'm trying to, I didn't want to quite give the counselors, I didn't give them a hard cutoff like last Wednesday or anything like that, and that may be to my fault. But basically, because I realize that a lot of times counselors are busy, it's not until the very last minute that they can look at the item. So I just assumed that we'd be getting some stuff at the last minute, and then we'd just be connecting up again come Monday or Tuesday.
Okay, and I'm the first to admit I'm one of those last minute counselors, so I try not to let that happen, but it does. So I respect that, but I definitely think that from all of our previous conversations, it seems like a hard deadline is probably wise, because I know Mr. O'Donnell has expressed that we shouldn't take too long on this, and it's already feels like it's been a couple of weeks, and I feel like it shouldn't be that complicated for the federal list compared to the state list. So I feel like we should be able to put our heads together and make this happen. But Mr. O'Donnell?
I just wanted to mention, because Madam Chairman, Mr. Griego Montoya's remark made me think of this. So when you are submitting projects, preliminary information, public safety to Senator Lujan, keep in mind, this is not a hard, fast process. And the reason I say that is because I go back and say what I did before about the way the two senators are operating this year. If you have a priority that you want one of them to pursue and pursue solely, you need to make that clear and only submit it to them. So you can submit several public safety things to Senator Lujan. When we get around to Senator Heinrich, what we might wind up doing is submitting one or two of those, however you want to do it. And we would wind up telling, if we wanted Senator Heinrich to take the lead, we would wind up getting back to Senator Lujan's staff and just say, this one we're pulling back. We don't, and we work closely enough with their staff, with Graham Mason in Senator Lujan's office, who's the legislative director, that we can pull that off if and when we need to. I'm just saying that there may be a division here when it comes to public safety that we want to make between the two senators and have one pursuing one and one pursuing another. You can submit everything you want to Senator Lujan, and we can figure that out later about which ones are going to be directed to which senator.
Thank you for the reminder, and it's good to know that we can pull it back. Any questions or comments? Anybody? No? Just me today. Okay. Thank you for the updates. Any other business that we need to discuss? All right. Well, then, thank you all for a very productive meeting. I hope you have a great weekend, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.